Good evening, everyone. Here, Dr. Imran Abbas from Dubai. Again, we are live with another session. So, today we will be with Professor Chetan Parmar from UK. He is also legend of bariatric surgery. He has lot of experience in MGB, OAGB, especially he is a great researcher. If I personally I follow his papers and he has so you can see his especially research work about MGB, OAGB, and that is also interesting. And today it is a great honor, sir. Really highly welcome and really admirable your sport and also your guidance. So we will continue this series of MGB, OAGB, and we will finish this series at 1st June with another legend who is Professor Carbajo from Spain, and then we will have a sum up session. So today we will start. And sir, Chetan, highly welcome, and over to you, sir. Please.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Professor Imran Abbas, who himself is one of the legends. And thank you for this kind invitation uh, to this excellent initiative. I would say, people are frustrated with the COVID pandemic. And I think this is a good way of spreading the knowledge and spreading the ideas and research to far and wide, from Australia to America to every corners of the world. Thank you.
Sir, really appreciable. So, as you know, so this interview is a little different than webinars. Just we will talk with each other. So, also I have some questions, and also I take some questions from viewers. I try my best. So, in this 1 hour, so I ask some questions, and also if you want to talk about something. So, first of all, we want to know about your brief introduction, sir. Please.
Thank you. I think, as you can guess, I did my medical college and master's from India. Then I did my DNB there. Then I also did my postgraduate diploma in hospital management and did a postgraduate diploma in medical legal law. And I interestingly did a diploma in naturopathy from Gandhi University. And I went to Tata Memorial Hospital. I don't know whether you've heard of that. It's one of the biggest cancer hospitals. That is where I then thought of coming to UK because few of my colleagues were preparing for exam. And I think that's how the UK journey started. I gave my MRCS, came to UK. The UK doesn't recognize the Indian training, so I did the whole surgical training again, and then slowly progressed. So I was trained in cancer and bariatric surgery both. And in 2012, we started bariatric surgery. That's where UK started doing mini gastric bypass. And that's how I got into mini gastric bypass slowly. I'm a consultant surgeon working in London now. I'm head of the department, and I'm an honorary associate professor at University College London, and I think editor of few journals. And as you know, I like research and publish papers and books. And at the moment, I think with COVID, the only additional thing which is exciting me more is, I'm appointed as the COVID research lead in the hospital and involved in few the biggest randomized control trials with COVID management.
Sir,
That's
excellent, really, and it is, I feel a proud and privilege. So, talking with such a person. So, sir, regarding this MGB, OAGB, that you know better, so it is little sensitivity in UK, US. So, how you start in 2012? What was the initiative?
So luckily, I was trained in the Northern England, where Professor Rutledge first came in 2012, and I was in a Sunderland Bariatric Unit where they started doing MGB. But having said that, I started learning sleeves and Roux-en-Y gastric bypass, and then slowly got into MGB. And we published and saw our own results of our first 100 patients, excellent results, and I think that's how MGB came into UK. I think we were among the first unit to start, and I'm proud to say that last year, the British Bariatric Metabolic Society, I was invited for a talk. Now there are around 15 trusts in the UK or England doing it, and I think there are more than 3,000 to around between 3,000 3,500 MGB OAGB performed in the UK now.
Oh, then you are history maker. So it means, so in history, Chetan Parmar will be one of the pioneer of MGB OAGB in UK.
No,
Sir,
I was in the right team.
Yeah. This is great point. Sir,
With Mr. Small and Kamal and all.
Yeah, sure, Kamal Mehbar. I understand, and also I acknowledge his definite his services, especially in research. He's a great researcher. Sir, another question regarding your practice. So now you are also doing sleeve gastrectomy. You are practicing also Roux-en-Y gastric bypass and MGB. So if we ask my question about how much percentage belong to MGB in your practice?
So in my practice, main choice is now MGB. 65 to 7, I think 65% would be MGB. Second number would be Roux-en-Y gastric bypass, around maybe 20% Roux-en-Y, and very less number of sleeve, 5 to 10% sleeves.
Sleeve gastrectomy.
Yeah.
So during this now 8 years, you are practicing MGB. You have started MGB. And definite also you did personally hundreds of MGB, and also with the team and with the trust, if we see, so thousands of cases with your team, with your, so you especially you have experienced. So what is my question during this period? Have you changed your technique for the better results of MGB, and which points? So length of pouch, width of pouch, size of JJ, which point you have changed, if you changed your practice or your technique?
Yeah, I think there have not been major changes, but yes, as you can imagine, I was a Roux-en-Y and a sleeve surgeon before as well, and then moved to MGB. So moving from that short pouch in the Roux-en-Y to a long pouch in MGB took time. And again, if you remember those days, MGB was not discussed and it was not as popular as now. There were a lot of controversies, there were a lot of concerns and question marks. So we were careful about gradually doing it in our unit. Technique-wise, I think a couple of main points which I can think of was that pouch, initially we used to make quite narrow and long pouch. I think long is still there. I think I've gone longer and longer. We used to do at crow's fit. Now I go even distal to the crow's fit. So I think that has changed. Before I used to do quite narrow. I use a 36 bougie. I used to be snug at it. Now I'm a bit generous with it for the patient to be able to eat a bit better and help their satiety a bit better. So I think that's one change. The other thing is the limb length. I think limb length wise, 200 centimeter was our standard limb length before, and we used to go higher. Now we have gone a bit other side. Now 150 is my standard limb, and then I go up to 200, but that's kind of, I play between 150 to 200.
To 200.
Two main points, pouch and limb length.
Excellent. Sir, personally, if I share my experience, I have started MGB in 2013. And you can't believe before that one of the major opposition, myself for MGB, that was the concern of GERD, concern of marginal ulcer, and concern of gastric carcinoma after MGB. And always in different conferences, I talk against MGB, I remember. So after this 2013, when I have started, and so then continue. So this is my question. So this is a common concern, and also if we see this recent paper of ASMBS DiMaria, not recent, okay, some months ago. So is this concern, this marginal ulcer, GERD, and also this liver failure, and as well as gastric carcinoma, these concerns are real?
Well, I think GERD and marginal ulcer are there, and I think it's not that we have 0% incidence of GERD, 0% incidence of marginal ulcer. But having said that, I think we have the same. Even with Roux-en-Y, I see marginal ulcer. Even with sleeve, I see GERD. Even with Roux-en-Y, I have seen GERD. So yes, I think it is real. Cancer, I don't think so, because it's that all of a sudden there were lots of more cancers in them. And believe me, again, Rutledge himself has done thousands of operations in America. US hates MGB. So if there was any cancer in any of those patients, I'm sure it would have been published by now. So uh, that's my point. So no, I don't think cancer is there. GERD and marginal also, yes, but I think that's where the patient selection becomes important.
So this point that you highlighted, so patient selection, what is your patient selection for MGB?
So as I mentioned, I think about 65% of my choice is MGB first. But the one good thing I do is, I think like everyone else, but we see our patient go in detailed history, and I myself do pre-op endoscopy on all my patients. So I think that is one big thing which helps me. So I do an endoscopy again. From seeing the patient to that, I would have advised some changes. Let us say smoking is quite prevalent in this part of the world. Alcoholism is there as well. So those points are already addressed. We check that in endoscopy. I do H. pylori eradication or H. pylori test for all of them. I look for hiatus hernias. And I think based on that, it helps me decide whether I can offer MGB on that patient or not.
Sir, which patient is not good candidate for MGB from your side? So now you
In
are justify by this question. So hiatal hernia, how you deal hiatal hernia? If there is a hiatal hernia 6 centimeter, 8 centimeter, uh, are you prefer MGB without repairing or with repairing, or no? You will go for Roux-en-Y.
Yes, so I think short answer is in for that I would go Roux-en-Y, but I think it depends on the sort of practice. So I practice in a national health service, which is a government sponsored program. Now, majority of our patients are from low socioeconomic conditions as well, so they can't afford, all the supplementations, follow up. Again, in the national health service, we are only funded for limited follow up for those patients. So yes, if as you say, if I have 5 or more than 5 centimeter hiatus hernia, I would rather talk to the patient and go for a Roux-en-Y bypass.
Roux-en-Y bypass. Sir, another question regarding GERD. So you know GERD is also very important, and if patient is symptomatic GERD and also documented GERD, so also if I open, yes, I know there are limited cases of Barrett, but because this is at this platform, so people want to hear from your side GERD before surgery. Or you do surgery for such a case, documented GERD and also symptomatic as well.
Yes. So yes, now I do. But let me say, for people who want to start doing MGB or who are doing in the first few, at that time we were not. We were at that time careful. First we did MGB, OHB, mastered the technique. There are lots of technical tips to learning. Like before, for example, for sleeve, everybody said, "Oh, sleeve is easy. Let's just do a sleeve." We all know that there are techniques and tips and tricks to sleeve as well. In the same way, in the beginning, we did few cases where we were only offering to non-patients with non-GERD, non-smokers, no hiatus hernia, learn the technique. And now I can say, yes, now I offer patients with GERD, symptomatic GERD, even small hiatus hernia, 2-3 centimeter hiatus hernia, even with mild esophagitis, I'm happy to offer that. But don't start that on day one. Otherwise, you will have a reflux, and then we will start blaming that, because there's a lot to learn.
Yeah, understand. Sir, another question. So regarding this, as you have mentioned, so this hiatal hernia or GERD especially. So my question is this: have you, in your experience, have you did MGB for a patient who was suffering with GERD, and then you face little worse condition? Have you faced during your
But
practice?
not really. As I say, I think the pre-op workup and pre-op counseling contributes a lot. So smoking, I think, is probably one of the points I I focus a lot on. I do want my patients to quit smoking before I start offering them operation. But having said that, that's for all bariatric surgery I do. But yes, for the operation, they might quit smoking. You never know after that. As you know, majority of them start smoking. That's not in our control. Yes, but no, I don't think I have had a scenario where I would have had a GERD and it would be so bad that I would have had to do that. I think from my colleagues' experience, yes, we have had a couple of patients where they needed conversion to Roux-en-Y, but again, that's a straightforward operation. But no, it's not been a major problem. I think they got. I normally post-operatively give lansoprazole twice a day for all my patients for up to 6 months for all routine post-op patients.
Sir, another question. So this is also because you are also researcher, and always a good researcher is a good predictor. Can you predict maybe in future? So this MGB will replace as a GERD or as a reflux anti-reflux surgery in obese people. Now the gold standard we know all Roux-en-Y is a anti-reflux surgery in obese people, in morbid obese. We prefer Roux-en-Y gastric bypass. Can you predict if techniques is excellent, everything is okay, and if we do this surgery in a patient, so then after I don't know when, then so is it possible?
I I think this is a controversial question, as you know, Professor, which is like a divide, the US and the rest of the world on one side. But my view is that yes, Roux-en-Y was considered the gold standard. No longer that's the case. We know there are issues with Roux-en-Y as well, with bit of reflux, marginal ulcer, internal hernia, and chronic abdominal pain is one of the biggest, I think, Achilles heel with Roux-en-Y gastric bypass. And that has shown up in the global trend as well, that the number of Roux-en-Ys are going down, sleeve is going up, and MGB is going up. And it's not for me on you to say, I think this is a global trend, and you can work out a reason why that is happening. I think if properly done, yes, MGB can be offered, as I mentioned, in patients with reflux, small hiatus hernia, non-smoker. You just need good preoperative workup history. And I would say we should be doing pre-op endoscopy on all of our patients whom we offer any bariatric operation, not just MGB, any bariatric operations. I think we should do. I can myself say in the last 2 years, I had 5 patients who I was planning an MGB. I did an endoscopy and had Barrett's, good long and short segment Barrett's. And in those ones, I think there are still controversies out there. So I didn't want to do MGB. I offered them Roux-en-Y bypass. Having said, it's not that they have resolved. The Barrett's is still there.
Yeah, I understand, and really, this is a completely logical talk, and I accept and respect, especially your answers and also your talk. Sir, my question. So during this period, so you have now your experience of hundreds of MGB. Have you faced intractable GERD after MGB? And if you face, what you did for that case?
I think first of all, workup. So after intractable GERD, you need to, I make them see my dietitian. I get them a good consultation with my dietitian as well to see that they don't have maladaptive eating habits, because many a times that's what catches out. For example, I can tell you just 2 weeks ago, I had a lady who was drinking 8 cups of coffee in a day and 1 big cup before going to bed and things. So I think just addressing those simple points help them. Smoking, as I mentioned here, look at the weather outside. It's dark, 0-degree temperature. The smoking is quite prevalent. I think we addressed that. Good PPI control is fine. If you have marginal ulcer, I add on sucralfate as well and do a repeat endoscopy. But in all those scenarios, in the end, I think I try that for 6 months plus. If we still fail, I think then conversion to Roux-en-Y is the best option.
It's a better. We can change to Roux-en-Y is better, not Braun.
Yeah.
So you.
Yeah, I think yes. There are some reports of doing Braun. I understand it makes sense that you just do that, but then you have one option there. You've already done an operation. You are having a complication. Why delay? Just do a Roux-en-Y, and I think the problem ends.
Because in such a situation, what is my personal concern? So this gastric pouch, the size of gastric pouch is large, and if we see this marginal ulcer, because most of this marginal ulcer are acid based, not bile based, and also this has been proved. So the buffering role of bile. So when we will do brawn, so then there will be no bile in pouch, and we have a large pouch. I don't know. I have no experience. Just by us. So maybe there is chance of marginal ulcer due to acid when we will do brown. So in such a
Yes.
situation, because always we ask, don't complicate the complication. If we will go for Roux-en-Y, that is the safe and better option in such a situation, as you have mentioned. Sir, same question related to GERD, if we, and also marginal ulcer. Sometimes we face marginal ulcer, and yes, you have mentioned. So you start sucralfate, you start PPI, everything, diet, but there is no response. Still, patient is suffering with marginal ulcer in MGB. So that also you did biopsy. Yes, this is ulcer based. Everything you did. So now you will go for this truncal vagotomy, or no? You will change. You will revise this. Your anastomosis, you will change to Roux-en-Y. What will be? Have you experienced such a situation? Or
Luckily, till now, I have not had that situation. I don't know, in future I might have it. But I think, as I mentioned again, Professor, it's a national health service. I have limited follow-up and thing. You don't want to make things more complicated. I think if you have failed all conservative management options, I think then easy answer is to just do a Roux-en-Y. It's a gold standard, easy to do, and at least then you maintain that weight loss after that. I think it's an easier option. Plus, if they have had this issue, you can remember their weight, they would have had good weight loss as well. Then the operation becomes quite quick. You just go proximal. That's the one big advantage of mini gastric bypass, that you have a long pouch. If you want to revise and there is a big ulcer, you just go proximal to it, divide it, and do the Roux-en-Y if you need. So it's a quicker operation.
understand, sir. Sir, because one of the common question from viewers, so because now I am following during this period, that is, they always ask me, so I must ask this question: tips and tricks of MGB. So, sir, if possible, so if you have your slides and if you want to share your slides, how you do MGB? If you want to share any short video only, it depends on you. We want to hear, so how you make this gastric pouch, and already you have mentioned, so now your pouch is longer and little white, and also this JJ, this gastrojejunostomy, the size of gastrojejunostomy, is it side to side, and also it is posterior to stapler line. These are different questions, as well as we will go ahead for BP limb also. I have many questions about that, but we can start from this. Please, sir.
Okay, I can.
Yeah, you can share.
Yeah, I can show you. I think I remember I looked up your first two webinar, and there were questions about the first staple fired.
Yeah, that is very.
Yeah, so I tried to.
Yeah, you
can,
can share.
Can you see my slide?
Yeah, sir, we can see.
Yeah.
Yeah, excellent.
Okay. So I just, so it's not a video, but what I did was, so these are my patients. It's not just from Facebook or YouTube anywhere. These are my patients. And what I did was, yesterday, I just took some time from that video, I captured the photographs.
Excellent.
So that's me. So this is, for example, that patient. I use, can you see my cursor?
Yes, sir, we can see.
I use Nathanson liver retractor in all my patients. So that goes in the epigastric 5mm port. So that's the stomach. That's the crow's feet, as we know. Now, here, so I go distal to the crow's feet. So this is the lesser curve. Now, before I used to go on this side. Now I go on the horizontal side. As you can see, it's on this. And to be honest, this video is from 2018. Now I probably go somewhere around here.
Yeah.
Okay, so as you can see, I'm now going more and more away from the crow feet towards the antrum. So it's on the horizontal side of the axis of the antrum. Again, if you if you see a lot of surgeons make a big window and they go all the way up while making the gastric pouch. I don't do that. My window is so small. That's it. My window would be only this much. And as I said, probably it would be somewhere here these days now. So you can see you have a long length there. Now, so that's why I would put your hands in, just widen that, check that I'm happy with that. And then I put my stapler in. So as you can see, this is my first stapler. The crow's foot is still intact. I have not dissected this a long way. I think that affects in a couple of ways. You know, the twist, it prevents that twist. Two, I'm not devascularizing that 2 centimeters of the distal part of the gastric pouch. And again, there are some vagal fibers and stuff. I'm not ruining that. I'm not ruining the vascularity of it. And you get additional 2 centimeters of the length of that. And my first stapler goes from my left hand. So it's from my left hand. Okay. Now it just doesn't stop here. So remember I mentioned I'm going lower and lower. So in old days, I was probably just firing here. But now, did you see the twist, the angulation of the stapler as well?
Yeah.
Compared to that, then once I'm happy there, I then angulate my stapler as well. And then with my right hand, maybe I can move a bit of stomach more. I think one of the tip what I realized was this angle here. You need to be careful that your anterior and posterior stomach wall is, as you know, has to be equal. If you take more anterior wall or more mainly you end up taking more anterior wall in the pinch. In that scenario, you will have a twist of your pouch. So I think that's what you need to be careful. So here, I would not do this. So this, if you see before, when I first started doing, maybe I would go in the crow's foot, or even that red line would be, because that's the direction of the stapler. Remember I said I go from the left side. So as soon as I go, my stapler would be there. So this is the easier option. But that means your pouch will be shorter. So I do this. Again, this probably is the tip here. You know, this fat pad, I hold that and put it in the groove of the stapler, which helps me prevent that anterior posterior equal pinch in the staple line. And other thing I check is, once I have decided that I have at least 2 centimeters of this distance between my staple and the greater curve as well. Believe me or not, in 2013, amongst our first cohort, we did have a patient where this patient came back with the narrowing. A patient did have previous surgery. So yeah, it was possible that there were adhesions which should have contributed, but we published it as well because we didn't want other people to make the same mistake. Yeah, so this is how my pouch would look. And I think, again, you probably know we all like to have a cobra head.
Yeah.
So this is one of the techniques which has changed. Before, we would do this and start going all the way here, which would give a bit of a bird, big kind of a narrow, but rather now I have a cobra head. So this is a 45 gun. First fire, exactly perpendicular to that, then another 45 gun. And then from here, then I start using 60-60.
Sir, I have one question here. So your second stapler will be also from left hand or no? From
yes,
right hand?
My second will be left hand as well.
Yeah.
So first left hand, second left hand. And once I'm happy, as you can see in the picture now, this is moved to the right hand now.
Yeah.
But now this is the right hand firing. So first 45, 45 and 60. And that gives that cobra head, or easy way is it gives like this tie appearance.
Yeah.
So there is a bit wider base of the pouch. And then this is where between my first and my second junction, I would make a hole and I would do a GJ. So
this GJ is anterior side. This gastrotomy will be posterior of the stapler line?
It will be posterior. Posterior. So do you want me to show that now?
No, you can go ahead. No issue. You can show your slides and then I will ask some.
So this is another patient, same thing. I'm just trying to show how to kind of have that cobra head. I took 2 different patients. Then, as we mentioned, we here. So it is posterior. So I make a hole in that first or second junction. My anastomos will be on the posterior wall.
Excellent. So this your anastomosis is not side to side. This is end to side,
Yes.
and this is the loop, and just posterior to this gastrojejunostomy is end to side.
Yes.
So what is one question regarding this in your cases? Sometime have you faced twist?
I had one patient. I remember. I thought I knew you were going to ask me that question. In one patient, I did have. I think there was a lot of adhesions posteriorly. Probably patient had pancreatitis or so before. I was not sure, but I struggled. And when we finished the operation, I think I should stop sharing now. Probably.
Yeah, you can stop your sharing.
Yeah. And when I finished, there was a bit of a twist the other way around.
And
Yeah.
sometimes, but because when we are talking about this, so because I personally I follow OAGB. uh, Personally, I follow OAGB, but also MGB, because you know our my surgery personnel is not MGB OT original technique. Also, this is not pure OAGB. Some mixture, some points from both legends. So then it depends on the our practice and our patients. So my this is my personal experience, because earlier stage, yes, same anastomosis, this end to side. But what was my concern at that time, and also I faced, so this food particle also go to afferent loop, and then there is little chronic pain. I don't know it is related to that. I have no idea. Just my question from your side, and also because when food will go there, there is also some absorption in that limb. So are you agree with this argument? And no, there is no.
I don't think I have seen that issue really. And probably again, as far as I know, and probably you know as well, that majority of the people still do MGB and they don't stitch that afferent limb up. I'm quite tempted to do that every now and then when I listen to people. I think it would be good to just put that stitch, but then you are just adding those extra steps, because then you know at some point you have to decide where to stop, because then you can put that afferents to it, then you can start fixing the pouch to the antrum, then you can start closing the hernia defect as well.
Yes.
I don't do that. I rather stick with this, and probably I can hold on. I'll quickly show you the same thing again.
Okay.
Just to show that how in the end my probably pouch looks like. I'm just going to show you that. So here, so can you see that?
Yeah. So
Yeah,
now here, sir, we can see. Yeah. I want to see your pouch. No, that gastrojejunostomy.
yes.
Yes, this is excellent, sir. So yes, now we see little distance between stapler line and bowel. If I can mention this area.
That's my end result, how it will look. So you have your.
No, my question: are you bury this area if there is little narrow, or no? No need to bury this area.
No, I don't see a problem, because as you see in the end, I think again I try to stay between the V. So not necessarily it would be, you would have a good distance, equidistance between your lesser curve and the new or the neo greater curve. Or even if it's slightly on this side, I think it's not much of an
This
issue.
is excellent. If we see, so this is the main target. This is a good pouch. This is a little wide pouch, not narrow. And as
Yes.
well as we can see this alignment of this pouch with this efferent limb. So that same theory. So yes, food will go here. Sir, regarding this gastrojejunostomy, what is the size of preference size?
So here,
So you use
yeah, so I use a 45 gun.
45.
I don't go all the way 45. I use around 4 centimeter of it. But then, as you see, I do 2-layer Vicryl closure. So I assume I compromise another half a centimeter. So, but at least I want a 3 to 4 centimeter uh, GJ anastomosis, a wider one,
It
not
means your
narrow.
target. So because in MGB and OAGB, what is the little difference? In OAGB, the procedure is more restrictive. But now, as you have mentioned, so there is not such a restriction. So your target is you make a gastric pouch, you have a wide this gastric pouch, as well as your gastrojejunostomy is not narrow. So this food, thus this is like a tube, and food go to small bowel, and the main component in your surgery is malabsorptive, not restrictive.
I think it's not main. I would say it's a combination of restriction and again probably because I use a shorter limb length now, around 150 200. It's more of a hypoabsorption, as we say, and not really malabsorption.
Yeah, hypoabsorption.
Yeah.
Yes.
So as you know from the Roux and Y studies as well, that
Yeah,
malabsorption really doesn't play that much of a role. So
I understand.
between
Understand.
150
Agree with you.
200. So it's yeah.
Yeah. Sir, another question regarding, because this is also, first of all, Professor Laurent Layani also say you regards and best wishes,
Hello, Lauren.
because I am also watching here. Message lot of there are lot of messages from our viewers, and also they. Okay, okay. Laurent also has some comment. Okay. Thanks, Laurent, for your attention. And sure, sir, I agree with you, because you are also a legend. Chetan, I have a question that is also most important regarding tailored BP limb. So you know this is also very important. And when we face, because you know what is your criteria about this length of this BP limb, BMI, age, comorbidities, especially when we are living in Dubai. So we face as well. You are in London, so I know same. So there are different ethnic so people. So some is vegetarian, some are European. You face also someone high protein. So any criteria for this, or no? Only BMI you will see, and age is also important for them for BP limb for initial surgery, not for redo. I will also have some question for redo, but now this is for initial surgery.
I think that's a very important question, and we know that this debate is ongoing since so long about the limb length. Because if you see, I think one big difference between MGB and OAGB is that in MGB you err towards the fixed or around 200 BP limb, whereas all the OAGB surgeons, if you talk to Miguel, Professor Carbajo, they go 40%, 60%
Yeah.
BP limb and 40% common limb, whereas we don't do that. And I think that's where the patient compliance and what part of the world you are operating becomes important as well. Because I don't think it is, you can do just one thing for all patients around the globe. Coming to your question here, I do tailor just minimal the BP limb, not with, you see some surgeons, I think Vijay Lee was there a couple of weeks ago. I think I remember his paper where he would add 10 centimeter with every BMI points. I don't do that. I think my criteria is simple. I remember I mentioned earlier that before I used to stick at 200 centimeter. Now less than BMI 50, I stick at 150 centimeter. Around super obese, super obese, I go towards 200 plus. Vegetarians, if patients are pure vegetarian, I rather prefer to have and again, say, let us say lower BMI with diabetic, with vegetarian, I would rather have a lower limb length
So
then I would go more than
maximum
150.
200. So it's not important.
Yes, true. And
There is
I
no
think if you, yeah, I think 200 is safer. Again, it depends on our patient cohort. As I mentioned, we are only funded for 2-year follow-up, and majority of our patients are from lower socioeconomic background. They are not rich, wealthy, obese patients. So you have to put all that in picture as well. So I think I would rather have less, that 5% less excess weight loss, rather than have any nutritional issue and
I understand.
complications.
I understand. I understand. So regarding this, because already you have mentioned, so this malnutrition. So have you faced severe malnutrition in any your case, and how you solve that? No.
touch wood, I have not had any malnutrition issue till date. Yes, I've had one patient who was a heavy smoker who started smoking 15, 20 cigarettes a day and had a lot of personal and psychological issues as well, where we struggled, or I would rather say she had excess weight loss. We had good dietitian input, uh, frequent diabetic, not diabetic, sorry, dietitian input, and managed to control it. And there are smoking cessation services here, so we referred her to them. She is on nicotine patches and other patches. So yes, but I have not had to convert or so yet.
Excellent. Sir, another question. So regarding this, if we see these supplements, are you agreed for your patients after surgery in MGB, and so this multivitamins, especially routinely, and if you so do this so far, how much time are you measure these vitamins, and how you handle your patient, especially, or no,
So
only food, only diet?
yeah, so I think as I mentioned, so my patients say they see a dietitian again the following day before they go home. So they have the operation next day morning, they see a dietitian before going home. We have the British Metabolic Surgical Society have the nutritional guidelines, which are, I think for viewers, they are on the website, the BOMS website it is called. So they have the nutritional guidelines, and we follow the same guidelines for Roux-en-Y and mini gastric bypass patients. So they all go home, as I mentioned, on 6 months of PPI. That is my choice. And they go on multivitamin, calcium, and iron supplementation
Thank you, sir.
that we advise them to take for life.
So this is another question. So maybe if you like to share, because in your experience now you did hundreds of cases, have you any bitter experience, especially as a early complication? So one of the earlier complication in MGB is bleeding, and if we see a male central obese hypertensive case is more prone to bleeding. So how you prevent in such a case, if case is a male and also morbid obese, central obese, hypertensive, there is more chance of bleeding, because now in MGB, just can you imagine, we have two sleeve inside, we have two sleeve stapler lines inside. So how you prevent bleeding, and what is your precaution, especially for youngsters, what they do in such a case?
That's a good question, and I think again it works up with pre-op workup. I think if they are hypertensive, they get on their first consultation they get a blood pressure checked in our hospital. During endoscopy, they get it checked. So if there is a variation in that, then at least I know that the patient needs blood pressure medications or so. So only when that is controlled, we then list them for bariatric surgery. And during the operation, again, we have a dedicated bariatric anesthetist who put the patient who are with our team. One extra step, what I think I do is that once at the end of the operation, I do check with my anesthetist what the blood pressure is. Because, some anesthetists like the blood pressure to be 80, 90 throughout the operation. And then you won't know post-op, the blood pressure will shoot up and the patient will have bleeding in the ward. Rather, I check that if the blood pressure is low side, I do wait for the anesthetist to bring it up to what is the normal blood pressure of the patient pre-op. And then only then I watch it for a couple of minutes, then I stop the operation.
So if I continue this question, so
Yeah.
I want what I want to take the point. So are you agree with enforcement of stapler line, and also like glue, like omentopexy, and also I must because I remember I don't know, in 2018 maybe we were in Antalya, Turkey, and I have a presentation there about bleeding after MGB, and there were also legends like Bruno and Torres, and all of them was there. Haris arranged that IBC in Turkey, so I was there at that time, and I also has presented my case and bleeding after. What was the point in that discussion? So is it necessary to? So this is my question. So also, as have you mentioned, so we can rise the BP. That was also from some of our experts. So you can rise the BP, you can see, and you can also deflate also this abdomen, and for 5 minutes, then again you can see. Can you understand my question, what I want to ask?
Yeah.
uh, have you any comment about this?
So I think one is I agree that I don't put any SIM cards or thing. Just hold on a second. Computer switch on. Yeah, I don't put any SIM card or glue or anything. I do put once I ask the blood pressure in the institute to check the blood pressure. If I normally operate around 14, 15 pneumoperitoneum pressure, I can go down to 10 or 12, see that everything is fine. I do use Liga clip though. I should say that I put Liga clips on the junctions where I have worry.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think that's it. I don't put drains. I don't do anything else fancy.
Sir, I have many questions. So at the end, I will try my best to share some of them, because
Yeah.
we also follow our time. So another question regarding post-op diet protocol in your MGB cases. What is your diet protocol?
Uh, I'm not as brave as Dr. Rutledge, who lets them eat the next day. No, so my patients get of water the same night, and they are allowed to mobilize in things. Next day morning, they are allowed yogurt, ice cream, and soup. And as I mentioned, they are all seen by the dietitian that morning or lunchtime-ish, and then they go home. Now they go home on pureed diet, so not necessarily only soup or so. It's a liquid or pureed diets, so like chicken boiled, blended kind of thing. So they go on pureed diet for a couple of weeks, and then they start gradually. They get a phone call at 3 weeks then by our dietitian, and if everything is fine, then they jump to semi-solid and.
Then again, you divided your period. So first 2 weeks, second 2 weeks, and after that, so we can
Yes.
start the regular diet, but in small amount. But
Yes.
the patient can, the chewing is more important in such a cases, and
Yes.
then we can go ahead for our
Yes.
patients.
Yeah.
Chetan, personally, I faced some weight regain in MGB. So I remember I did a surgery in 2013. The patient was 228. This is my personal experience. And I did 200 because at that time just I did 200 this BP limb. Now he touched, yes, 90 kg. Yes, his height was 180 plus, and so now he start to gain weight. Have you experienced?
Uh, Again, I don't chase the percentage numbers like 100% or so. I think it is important to have a chat with the patient, what the patient expectations are and things. I know mainly when we talk of 150 and 200 limb length, there is always a concern that there are weight regain issues. We have not faced that issue till date, but again, I assume that if that was the case, it should be easy to literally lengthen the small bowel. But having said that, I have not had weight regain issue. I have had one interesting lady though who intentionally put 6 kilo weight, and it's a good story. She she had 85% weight loss, and my dietitian saw her. Everybody happy. This is, I'm talking of just during the lockdown, and then in the follow up, her percentage weight loss was only 65%. So she rang me saying, "Mr. Parmar, this lady is gaining weight." So I gave, at the moment, all the face-to-face consultations are off. So I gave her a phone call saying, so and so, the dietitian said that you are gaining weight and having maladaptive eating habits and stuff. So she said, no, Mr. Parma, I put that 5 kilos on because I was so skinny. I didn't like myself in the mirror. So I put this, and now I'm happy with this 70% weight loss. So be happy with that. So I think it's so important to have a chat with the patient as well. But no, coming back to your question of weight regain, I have not had a cross. I think again, we do see a lot of patients here with eating disorder, psychological problems. So around 20 to 25% of our patients have binge eating and eating disorder assessment. And I think if we see those, they do go back to the psychologist and the those team.
Professor, really excellent discussion. So now I have some question regarding redo because nowadays, so redo is also one of the common bariatric surgery, especially we face. I am just highlighting a sleeve gastrectomy, and also I will highlight two types of redo. So after sleeve, my just question is first of all regarding sleeve. So sleeve this redo surgery due to GERD. So sometimes we have intractable GERD after sleeve gastrectomy, and also weight regain. So these are sometimes we have both in, and most of time we have both in one patient. We have because little GERD, so and also weight regain, but maybe we don't have weight regain but severe GERD. So in both of these cases, especially GERD and also intractable GERD, are you prefer MGB? And if you prefer MGB, in such a case, what is your criteria of BP limb? In such a case, are you measure whole length? Common channel is important for you, or no? You have something criteria different.
So that's a very good question. I think sleeve, as we all know, we are seeing more and more patients with sleeve who need revisional surgery. And if it is intractable reflux, so let us say patient, we have tried PPIs, everything, the endoscopy shows, otherwise technically the sleeve is fine, because remember, you can have narrowing at the incisura
Yeah.
and those kind of issues. Now, again, if remember, if at incisura or higher, if it is narrowing, you can't really do MGB, because I feel then if you go proximal to it, your pouch is going to be short.
Yeah.
So I rather want the pouch long. So in that case, if there is a technical issue, then I would rather say stay safe. Your patient has already failed one bariatric surgery, give a Roux-en-Y bypass. If it is weight regain or poor weight loss after sleeve, and again endoscopy and everything seems there are no other technical issues, then I would say I go for a MGB.
MGB. And regarding BP limb, what is your criteria? This is because this is
Yeah.
most important, especially in weight regain.
So I think just in December we have published a paper. I don't know if you've seen it. So it was the largest systematic review looking at till date 1,000 plus conversions, bands and sleeves to Roux-en-Y, to mini gastric bypass. And I think what we have looked at all the evidence around and stuff, and even in that case, we don't need to go radical with the BP limb. I think there is a range from 150 to 400, but what all the study shows that even in there, you can stick around 250. So it's for poor weight loss or weight regain, I think you can go around 200 to 250, depending on what the BMI is of the patient. If people want to go beyond 250 in those scenarios, I would simply say it is safer then to measure the small bowel and check that you have adequate common limb there. That was the only point I would say. For GERD, it doesn't matter, because GERD, and if you want to add a bit of weight loss, yes, 200 should be fine. As we all know, again, I think I have published a paper on that from our experience, that only for GERD, when you convert to Roux-en-Y, you will have the GERD resolution, but they are not good for further weight loss. So a sleeve patient, for weight loss, if you convert to Roux-en-Y, it's not that great compared to mini gastric bypass. So mini gastric bypass give a better, I think, weight loss compared to Roux-en-Y as a revisional operation. For GERD, it is better.
Yes, sir, one question from Professor Amir Khan from UK. He asked about so this revisional surgery, especially after, because now nowadays I remember one time, so we were putting band. Now this is the so removing of the band, and again I remember also in 2000, I think 8 9 at that time. So when we removed the band, so I remember at that time, so there was also, because we do routinely sleeve gastrectomy after band, it was little risky of it's a leak. So that was two stages. So remove the band, wait, and then go for sleeve gastrectomy. But MGV is low pressure bariatric surgery, So, have you experienced remove the band same time, also decapsulation and everything, and then go for gastric pouch because there is also a lot of adhesions at the posterior side of this gastric pouch. So, have you any experience, and are you recommend same session we can do MGB in such a case?
So I heard only few. I don't have.
Right. Sorry, if I also add one question regarding this. So, because in band also we face this hiatal failure. This is not hiatal hernia. This is hiatal failure due to high pressure. So, also I want to know about that hiatal region in such a case.
Yes, so I think I don't have, to be honest, I don't have vast experience in revisional surgery. Is very limited, we would say. Uh, but if the band, if there is a, let us say in simple, if there is a complication, if it's a slip band and there is a big gastric pouch above it, or there is an issue with that, in those cases, I would rather say do a two-step. So just remove band, let it settle, and then do it 3 months later, the revisional surgery. And that way you can have a chat with the patient again as well in your clinic about pros and cons, whether you want to do MGB, whether you want to do Roux and Y or so. If it's a straightforward band, no complications, and it is just poor weight loss, and on endoscopy again your esophagus is not dilated, you see with bands sometimes
Yeah.
that they're filling and filling because of the poor weight loss. They keep on making it so tight, your esophagus is then dilated and stuff. So in those cases, I would not do it as a single step. I would rather say remove, give time for the patient to understand what he's going through, and then do as a second step. But if it's a straightforward case, straightforward band, no major esophagitis or ulcerations, and it's just poor weight loss, then yes, then a single stage MGB is probably can be offered. Again, I would say that systematic review, there is only limited evidence out there. One is a big paper from Mario where they did, what that analysis shows is that when you do it as a one stage revision, there are chances of more complications compared to two stage.
Sir, excellent.
That
And
evidence shows.
yeah, yeah, excellent. And now because our time is also near, but there is also, I can watch here at Facebook a hard talk between Kirman Saravi and also from Young Nick and also Laurent Layani and different. So regarding MGB in vegetarian, and I appreciate all of you that because your comments and your this discussion is very helpful. You all are so well known bariatric surgeons. So I appreciate and we learn a lot of from your comments. Sir, so this any message for youngsters because they are going to start MGB. So because this will be our last question. So any message for them?
I would say MGB is a good operation. I think, but what I would say is don't just learn one operation. Don't just be a single operation surgeon. So don't just say, okay, that's one operation. I know. Learn 2, 3, 4 bariatric operations and tailor them according to the needs of the patient. Because, that's how probably sleeve got a bad name, because everybody just started doing sleeve without understanding the techniques of it. So yes, MGB is a good operation. I think it is here to stay. We will probably see more and more number being performed in the few years again as well. And if you want to start doing MGB, probably learn the techniques, watch videos, see Professor Rutledge's operation, see Imran Abbas's operation, watch their techniques, go and watch someone do it live as well, and then start doing it rather than just start doing it. But I think it is worth keeping a MGB in your armamentarium, I would say. On that note, we have, last year we did start a MGB masterclass in Europe. We did few, there are 5 centers in Europe where we are doing it. It is free of cost for people to come and observe it. But because of COVID, everything got cancelled and delayed. We did few centers. We are hoping that by 2021 and 2022, we should be able to do that again. So yeah, I think see, learn, read papers and things, learn the evidence, and then do that.
Sir, it was great session really and very informative. Your support and your guidance is really admirable. And so, next, first of all, many thanks of all viewers, I think, and also the participants. I think we reached in hundreds of this our viewers live now. We have at Facebook Global Laparoscopy, and it will touch in thousands within one day because now people follow these interviews. So next week we will be another legend, Mario Mazzuella from Italy. He's also one of the big name of bariatric surgery and lot of experience in especially MGB OAGB. So this series MGB OAGB will continue till June. That in middle June we will have a sum up session, and again we will start sleeve gastrectomy for 6 months, and next year we will start True NY for 6 months. After that we will go for metabolic surgeries in low BMI, and 2023 we will be a redo surgery. And we need your support, we need your guidance, your comments now, because this series of MGB OAGB is going on. So please, if you have any question, so highly welcome for our next and also you can ask any question from Chetan, and I will share if you have any question with Professor Chetan, no issue. And in future, if you have any question, so highly welcome, and it will be great honor. Sir, again, thanks, really thanks for your support, for your guidance, and we need your support and guidance.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Professor, for the kind invitation.
Thanks a lot.
Keep on doing the great job.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
God bless you.